I was a victim of vicious family favoritism, pushed down a staircase by my envious sister. What followed would alter everything. I was 6 steps from the landing when Ivy thrust me downward. 12 cement steps, a moment of eerie quiet, then my world fractured. Blood pooled under my cheek. My arm was mangled at an unnatural angle, and above my sister stood still, watching, not in alarm, not in dread, but with a smirk. Then came 5 words I'll never erase from my mind. "You got what you deserved." I'm Claire, 22, female. This is about my sister, Ivy, 20, female, and the moment that reshaped our lives. To grasp what happened, you need to understand our family's dynamics. My parents, Diane and Richard, always treated Ivy like she was untouchable. She was the miracle child, born after years of struggling for a second kid. Meanwhile, I became the family's punching bag the moment she arrived. Every shattered plate, every lost item, every problem in the house somehow landed on me. Ivy learned early that she could do no wrong in their eyes. The favoritism was suffocating. Ivy got designer clothes while I shopped secondhand. She was handed a shiny new car for her 16th birthday. I scraped by with 2 part-time jobs to buy a beat-up Honda. When she flunked classes, they paid for expensive tutors. When I struggled, they told me to try harder. The worst wasn't even the material stuff. It was how they dismissed my feelings, my achievements, my very existence. Ivy thrived on this imbalance. She'd deliberately break things and pin it on me, knowing our parents would buy her story without question. She'd borrow my belongings, lose them, then fake tears when I got upset. Once, she deleted my college application essay the night before it was due, claiming her laptop glitched. My parents scolded me for not saving my work. But the hospital incident? That was a new depth, even for Ivy. It started 3 weeks earlier, when I got accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship. It wasn't a full ride, but it made my dream of studying journalism possible. I was thrilled, thinking my parents might finally be proud. I was wrong. When I shared the acceptance letter at dinner, Dad barely glanced up from his food. "That's nice, Claire," he said, as if I'd mentioned the forecast. Mom was blunter. "I hope you figured out how to cover the rest. We can't support you like we did Ivy's college fund." Ivy, then a high schooler with terrible grades, grinned across the table. "Don't worry, Claire, community college is perfectly fine," she said, her voice dripping with casual venom. My chest tightened, but I pushed forward. "Actually, I've applied for more aid and work-study programs. I've got it handled." "Always so self-sufficient," Mom said, her tone mockingly proud yet somehow belittling. "Just like when you were little. Richard, remember how she never needed our help?" This was their way of rewriting the past. I wasn't self-sufficient by choice. I had to be because they were too busy catering to Ivy's every whim to notice me. Ivy's expression soured as the conversation continued. She loathed any moment when attention shifted from her, even briefly. Over the next few days, her usual tricks escalated. She accidentally spilled soda on my laptop, costing me money I didn't have for repairs. She spread rumors at school that I'd faked my scholarship. She even posed as me to call Northwestern's admissions office, trying to cancel my acceptance. Luckily, they required verification she couldn't provide. The breaking point came when Grandma Alina was hospitalized. Grandma Alina, Dad's mother, was the only family member who ever showed me genuine love. She always saw through Ivy's act and wasn't shy about calling out my parents' bias. At 78, with diabetes and declining health, she collapsed at home, breaking her hip. We rushed to County General Hospital. Grandma was set for surgery the next morning, and the whole family gathered, aunts, uncles, cousins. For once, I felt like I belonged. Grandma kept asking for me, wanting to hold my hand and talk about college. She was so proud of my scholarship, telling every nurse who passed by. "My granddaughter Claire's going to Northwestern," she'd say, eyes shining despite the painkillers. "She's going to be a journalist and change the world." Ivy hated every second of it. The surgery went smoothly, but Grandma stayed a few extra days for observation. On the 3rd day, most relatives had left, leaving just my parents, Ivy, and me. We took turns staying with Grandma, and it was my turn for the evening shift. Around 8 p.m., I went to grab coffee from the vending machine on the 1st floor. The hospital's central stairwell connected all 5 floors, wide, well-lit steps with security cameras at each landing. I preferred stairs over the elevator. They were quicker and gave me space to think. I was heading back up with 2 coffees, one for me, one for Grandma, when I heard footsteps behind me. Between the 2nd and 3rd floors, I saw Ivy trailing me. She moved fast, her face set in a focused, almost menacing expression. "Ivy, what are you doing?" I called. She didn't answer, just kept climbing. Something about her demeanor felt wrong, predatory. I sped up, but the coffee cup slowed me down. Then she struck. 6 steps from the third-floor landing, I felt her hand slam into my back with startling force. The coffees flew as I lurched forward, twisting to catch myself. A stair's edge caught my ribs, and I felt a crack. I tumbled down 12 concrete steps, my head hitting each one, until I crumpled on the second-floor landing. The pain was excruciating. My left arm was bent unnaturally. Blood pooled under my face, and every breath burned my chest. I tasted blood and heard a strange ringing in my ears. Through the haze of agony, I saw Ivy at the top of the stairs. She didn't rush to help. She didn't call for aid. She just stood there staring down with a smug grin. Then she spoke those 5 chilling words, "You got what you deserved." Then she started screaming, "Help, someone help. My sister fell." Within moments, the stairwell filled with nurses, orderlies, security, and my parents who must have been nearby. As medics worked to stabilize me, Ivy put on an Oscar-worthy act. "I just came to check on her," she sobbed, collapsing into Mom's arms. "She was taking so long with the coffee, and I got worried. I saw her slip down the stairs. It happened so fast." My parents instantly went into defense mode, not for me broken on the floor, but for Ivy. "It was an accident, right, Ivy?" Mom said, stroking her hair as if she were the victim. "Some people are just clumsy," Dad added, barely glancing at me as medics worked. "Claire's always been accident-prone." Mom nodded, her voice laced with that familiar tone of exasperated disappointment, as if my injuries were just another mess I'd caused. I tried to speak, to tell them what happened, but my jaw wouldn't move right, and every attempt sent pain shooting through my skull. All I could do was lie there, watching my family console my attacker while brushing me off as a burden. But there was something neither Ivy nor I knew. County General had recently upgraded its security system. The new cameras didn't just cover hallways, they recorded every inch of the stairwells in crisp HD with audio. Nurse Grace Turner, a no-nonsense veteran of 25 years, had seen everything. Grace, in her 50s, had witnessed countless family dramas. She was near the stairwell when she heard Ivy's tone and paused. She saw Ivy tailing me with purpose. She saw the push. She saw me fall. She saw Ivy's triumphant smirk before the fake tears, and she hit record on her phone, capturing Ivy's damning words. "You got what you deserved." As medics loaded me onto a stretcher, Grace quietly headed to the security office. She spoke with Mark Sanders, the hospital's security chief, and they reviewed the footage. The cameras caught everything from multiple angles. Ivy's deliberate shove, my fall, her satisfied expression. Grace's phone recording captured Ivy's confession and my parents' dismissive comments about my clumsiness. Mark immediately called the police. I spent 6 hours in surgery. I had a concussion, 3 fractured ribs, a collapsed lung, a broken left arm, and internal bleeding requiring emergency intervention. A breathing tube kept my airway clear during the complex procedure to repair the damage. My parents visited me once in the ICU, staying for 10 minutes before saying they had to take Ivy home because she was traumatized by witnessing the accident. They left me with a generic get-well card, clearly grabbed from the hospital gift shop. But Grandma Alina stayed. Despite her own recovery, she had nurses wheel her to my room. She held my good hand and wept, not Ivy's fake tears, but real ones. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said. "I'm sorry they treated you like this, but I see you. I've always seen you." She was there when Detective Carmen Hayes arrived the next morning. Detective Hayes, a seasoned investigator from the county's domestic violence unit, had reviewed the footage and Grace's recording. She'd also dug into Ivy's history, uncovering a sealed juvenile record of assault and 2 school suspensions for fighting. Incidents my parents had buried using their influence. "Claire," Detective Hayes said gently, "I need to ask you about yesterday, but first know that we have video evidence. You're safe now and will ensure justice is served." I told her everything. Years of abuse, the favoritism, Ivy's escalating behavior, and what happened on the stairs. Detective Hayes recorded every word, and Grandma Alina corroborated the toxic family dynamics she'd witnessed. When my parents arrived that afternoon, they weren't alone. Detective Hayes and Officer Johnson from the Juvenile Division were waiting. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," Detective Hayes said, "we need to discuss the incident involving your daughters." Dad went into defensive mode. "It was a tragic accident. Ivy's devastated. She's been having nightmares about seeing Claire fall." "It wasn't an accident," Detective Hayes said calmly. "We have footage showing Ivy intentionally pushing Claire. We also have audio of her confession afterward. Mom paled. That's impossible. Ivy would never. Ma'am, listen to this. Detective Hayes played Grace's recording. Ivy's voice rang clear. You got what you deserved. Silence followed. My parents' victim-blaming comments played next, calling me accident-prone despite their daughter's attempt on my life. Dad, a city councilman, sensed the political fallout. Detective, there's been a misunderstanding. Ivy's just a kid, stressed about her grandmother's hospitalization. Mr. Peterson, Detective Hayes cut in, your 17-year-old daughter committed aggravated assault, causing life-threatening injuries. Stress doesn't justify attempted murder. The word murder hit like a sledgehammer. Ivy was arrested that evening at home. The charges were severe: aggravated assault with intent to cause serious harm, plus additional counts for endangering hospital patients and staff. My parents hired Thomas Whitman, a top-dollar defense attorney known for getting rich kids out of trouble. They also hired a PR firm to spin the story, as Dad's career was at risk. But the evidence was ironclad. The security footage leaked to local media and went viral. It showed everything: Ivy's calculated approach, the push, my fall, her smug grin. The audio of her confession and my parents' callousness fueled public outrage. Dad's rivals called for his resignation, arguing that someone who couldn't protect one daughter from another shouldn't govern. Mom was forced to step down from the school board. The Herald Tribune ran a series, The Favored Child, When Family Bias Turns Lethal. Reporter Veronica Clark dug deep, interviewing dozens who'd seen our family's dysfunction. Teachers recalled Ivy cheating or bullying, only for my parents to squash consequences with donations or influence. Neighbors saw Ivy destroy my things in the yard while my parents did nothing. A damning interview came from Mrs. Thompson, my middle school counselor. She'd noticed my distress in 7th and 8th grade and tried to arrange family counseling, but my parents dismissed her as meddling. Claire was crying for help, she told the reporter, but the adults who should have protected her were too focused on their perfect family image. The articles exposed how privileged families shield their children's violent behavior with wealth and connections. Dad's career became a case study in personal corruption spilling into public life. Former colleagues revealed how he'd used his position to erase Ivy's misdeeds, like paying off a school after she vandalized property or pulling strings to drop underage drinking charges. The trial uncovered more. 6 months before the attack, Ivy had caused a drunken car crash, damaging a parked vehicle. My parents paid for repairs and threatened the owner to keep quiet, ensuring no record. We were protecting Ivy's future, Mom said in her deposition, oblivious to how their protection enabled Ivy to nearly kill me. Prosecutors called Dr. Michael Harris, a forensic psychologist specializing in sibling abuse. This isn't a one-off mistake, he told the jury. Ivy's behavior shows a pattern of antisocial tendencies enabled by parental favoritism. She knew she could harm Claire without consequences, escalating to extreme violence. He pointed to premeditation. Ivy had researched my routines, scoped the hospital, and made threatening comments. This wasn't sibling rivalry, he said. It was attempted murder driven by jealousy and enabled by family dysfunction. Ivy's behavior in court didn't help. She rolled her eyes during testimony, smirked at evidence, and showed anger when portrayed negatively. When photos of my injuries were shown, she looked bored, checking her phone, a moment that made front-page news. The turning point came during her cross-examination. Prosecutor Walsh asked, "Ivy, do you love your sister?" Her attorney objected, but the judge allowed it. Ivy hesitated, then said, "I don't think about Claire much either way." "You don't think about the sister you nearly killed?" Walsh pressed. "I didn't try to kill her," Ivy snapped. "If I wanted her dead, she'd be dead." The courtroom froze. Even her lawyer looked stunned. "So you could have killed her if you wanted?" Walsh asked. "That's not what I meant," Ivy backtracked, but the damage was done. "It was just a push. I didn't think she'd get hurt that bad." "But you planned to push her," Walsh said. "I was mad," Ivy admitted, her voice rising. She was getting all the attention with her stupid scholarship and college plans. Grandma kept praising her. It wasn't fair. "So you pushed her down concrete stairs to teach her a lesson?" Walsh asked. "I thought it'd bring her down a notch," Ivy said, oblivious to how callous she sounded. "She's not better than me just because she got a scholarship. I deserve attention too." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. During my recovery, more disturbing details emerged. Detective Hayes interviewed friends and classmates, uncovering Ivy's darker side. Rachel, her former best friend, shared recordings where Ivy said she wanted to get rid of me. In one, she said, "Claire thinks she's hot stuff with her scholarship. Someone needs to knock her down, literally." Another classmate, Ethan, said Ivy had studied my schedule for weeks and asked about the hospital's layout, claiming she was checking on Grandma. Her ex-boyfriend, Caleb, revealed that Ivy had shown him the stairwell, noting its lack of cameras, unaware they'd been recently installed. She'd mused about how accidents could happen there. Meanwhile, my parents' behavior during my recovery spoke volumes. They visited 3 times in 2 weeks, each visit under 20 minutes, more concerned about legal fallout than my health. On their second visit, Mom asked me to drop the charges. "Think of the family," she said. "This publicity could ruin us. Ivy's just a kid who made a mistake." "A mistake," I said through my breathing tube. "She tried to kill me." "You're being dramatic," Dad said. "The doctors say you'll recover." "I have a collapsed lung, broken ribs, and a concussion," I said. "I could have died." "But you didn't," Mom said. "No need to destroy Ivy's future over something that turned out fine." Grandma Alina, knitting in the corner, spoke up. "Diane, Richard, you've enabled that girl for years. This crosses every line. Claire could have died and you're worried about Ivy." "Mother, you don't understand," Dad said. "I understand perfectly," Grandma snapped. "You created a monster and care more about damage control than justice." That day, Grandma Alina petitioned to become my guardian. The custody evaluation by Dr. Lillian Brooks was scathing. "Claire shows signs of scapegoat child syndrome," she wrote. "She's been devalued, blamed, and neglected her entire childhood, while Ivy was elevated to untouchable status. This created a volatile environment where Ivy felt entitled to harm Claire." The report noted my parents' denial and lack of empathy. Dr. Brooks recommended supervised visitation and mandatory therapy if they wanted to reconnect with me. More revelations came from Aunt Carol, Dad's sister, who'd been ostracized for criticizing their favoritism. 3 weeks after the attack, she told Detective Hayes that Ivy, staying with her, had bragged to her daughter Melissa about pushing me. "Claire got what she deserved," Ivy said, laughing. "I planned it for weeks. If she hadn't survived, it'd be better. I'd be the only daughter like I should have been." Aunt Carol recorded this, and the judge revoked Ivy's bail, citing her lack of remorse and ongoing threat. "She sees this not as a mistake, but a successful attack she regrets not finishing," Judge Evelyn Grant said. My parents spent their savings and mortgaged their house for Ivy's defense, hiring Whitman, psychiatrists, and PR consultants. They pressured me to back off, with Dad even showing up drunk at Grandma's, yelling, "You're tearing this family apart. Ivy made one mistake and you're sending her to jail." "What kind of sister does that?" "The kind whose sister tried to kill her," I said. "The kind tired of being treated like dirt while Ivy gets away with everything." He had no answer. Friends and family later shared stories they'd kept quiet out of loyalty or fear. My English teacher, Mrs. Sanchez, said Ivy tried to sabotage my newspaper application by accusing me of plagiarism. Our neighbor, Mr. Johnson, saw Ivy deflate my bike tires multiple times but stayed silent to avoid trouble. Our family doctor, Dr. Joyce Park, recalled finger-shaped bruises on my arms at 15, which Ivy blamed on a playful fall. My parents backed her story. The pattern was clear. Ivy had abused me for years, and my parents either ignored it or covered it up. The trial lasted 3 months. Ivy's defense claimed she had a mental health crisis, was stressed, or that I'd been the aggressor. The evidence crushed every argument. Grace Turner testified about what she saw and recorded. Mark Sanders presented the frame-by-frame footage. Detective Hayes detailed Ivy's violent history and my abuse. Grandma Alina, despite her frailty, testified about years of favoritism and Ivy's manipulation. "That girl was always headed for this," she said, pointing at Ivy. "And her parents paved the way with their blindness." Dr. Alan Carter, the ER doctor, confirmed my injuries showed intent, not an accident. Ivy's testimony sealed her fate. Her lawyers hoped her charm would sway the jury, but she couldn't hide her true self.